All right. And what is up, everybody? Thanks a lot for tuning in for another Indy Investor Pod. We're going through a series, basically just diving into the neighborhoods all around Indianapolis. I got my buddies back with me, joining me for another episode. They're going to be with me for this entire series. So we have Steve Lehman, Dave Short, and Sterling Davis. Really appreciate these gentlemen. They're all very knowledgeable on these neighborhoods. They're experienced. They've done deals all over Indianapolis and just have, like I said, have experience in these areas. So I really appreciate them joining me. And with that, let's get on with the show as we dive into Indy's East Side. All right, what's up, everybody? Thanks for coming in for another Indy Investor Pod. We got Steve, Sterling, and Dave here to join me talking about Indy's East Side. So as we kind of dive into this, kind of talk about some of these neighborhoods. On the last few episodes, we talked about kind of the central areas here in Indianapolis, and we're just going to kind of go east now. So kind of dive into these. Like I said, we're talking about pockets, we're talking about neighborhoods, we're talking about areas, things you need to be careful of, that types of thing on these episodes. So in the last episode or last kind of portion, we focused on that central part, and we kind of talked about a little bit about that Brookside, Rivoli Park, kind of those areas right in there. So let's jump back into that a little bit more, and then we'll just kind of head east and talk about that as we get out towards the loop. So I know, Steve, you kind of mentioned this in the last, I think 2 episodes ago, but when you're talking about like kind of that Brookside Park area and Rivoli Park and things like that, what are some things that people need to be careful of or need to be looking out for in those areas? I know some people I've seen some deals from wholesalers where they're trying to like sell stuff for, 80K plus. And I'm like, that's not going to be possible over there and things like that. I know it's turning and the value's kind of coming up on that South Brookside part area, but what are you just seeing with some of the values and things over there?
We've been watching it for years. We've been over there for years, and your top value was at 135 at one time, but that was more towards Parker and rural and that area over there, and then it's gradually been moving east, and we're starting to see things pick up on Tuxedo and Olney. We sold a duplex over there just recently for 180 some, I think. And that worked out real well. And it's gradually picking up over there where your ARVs can get up as high as 250. And I think that's where a lot of people become not understanding values, because they think they see a 250 and then all of a sudden, well, then this property that's a piece of junk is worth 80. It's not how it works. People are starting to talk about the North Brookside. North Brookside is still sketchy in a lot of places. You got to be real careful where you're at. There's some good properties over there, some real nice ones. And there's a certain little pocket over there that's real nice too. So you got to be careful when you're on the north end too. When you get south of Rivoli or into Rivoli, that's south of 10th Street, you got to be real careful over there. The further east you go, the worse it's going to be. The closer to rural, the better you're going to be. Parker, Oakland, Oxford, those are good streets. But when you see things at the 900 block of, let's say, LaSalle, you got to use some real caution over there. There are some new restaurants over there that have been put in because of the virus and everything. I don't know how well they're doing, but there's some good stuff over there. And there are opportunities that are occurring where businesses are going to start coming in there. And hopefully once this virus stuff is done, then we'll see some momentum moving. But it's a good place for buy and hold or possible beginning flips.
Yeah. Let's go a little east of that. Like Sterling, let's kind of talk about like maybe that Little Flower area and then up into like the kind of north of that with the Otterbein and things like that. I look at those as like great, rental areas and stuff like that. So you got kind of the smaller houses and things, but I feel like Little Flower offers a lot of value when it comes to being able to basically buy and hold over there.
Yeah, it's funny. It was probably a year ago. Steve Lehman pulled me to the side and started yelling at me because I talked bad about Brookside Parkway. But Steve is the one that got me to Brookside, and next I did a project next to his flip. So actually, we bought the house from Steve and them. So he actually got me into Brookside. So thanks, Steve. But when we start talking about Little Flower, I think similar to what Steve broke down when it comes to the rental market, you just have to be smart, because I think Little Flower is not all even. There's good Little Flower, there's great Little Flower, and then there's bad Little Flower. I think if you're west of Grant Street, like that's not the little flower that is giving the best results. You know what I mean? If you're kind of wanting to be in the center of little flower, you know what I mean, where, you know, Linwood, those streets, like those streets are where you're going to have what we were talking about, you know, a couple episodes ago, where the tree lines are grander, the streets are a little bit wider, you know, really home ownership. You're going to find houses over there starting at like 120 to 150. You know, they're smaller homes, but, you know, have those original wood, probably have that yellow brick that's kind of known for little flower. But then if you kind of start pressing against like that Emerson, you know, DeQuincy like area, you know, I like those areas, and I have a lot of, you know, properties on DeQuincy that works. I love the brick streets of DeQuincy, but, you know, 16th Street and then 10th Street, you just have to be smart, you know what I mean, when you're buying on those streets, because I think, like I said, the value's kind of in the heart of those neighborhoods, not necessarily on the 10th or the 16th Street.
It's the perfect example. Once you get west of, you know, Grant, Chester, Denny, those are still, in my mind, rental streets, but they're 2 to 4 years away from being good flip streets.
Yeah.
So if you can buy and rent and get positive cash flow, in 4 years, you're going to have a good flip property that's give you some really good appreciation. Where, you know, you get Shannon, Linwood, Bozard, those are all owner-occupant streets. And like you said, the quality of the house is a lot better than it is on Denny and Colorado and Chester.
Well,
Those
you're absolutely right.
Pretty ragged little streets.
Bought a house from Simple Wholesaling at 1472 Grant. I think paid like 35 for it. You know, put 25 into it. After repair value was somewhere around 90, and it's a good hold area. You know what I mean? But did a flip at 15 something, 1530 Euclid, and it was a flip, right? Like, and we sold it for 180,000, completely gutted the thing and redid the basement. So you kind of have to understand that those differences, though.
Yeah, what we try to get flippers from doing is, you know, don't have a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and you comp it to the 2-bedroom, 1 bath on Shannon. You know, there's $50,000 difference between those two houses, but they're only 3 streets away from each other. Mm-hmm. You know, so you can't, well, it comps at this amount of money. The ARV says it's this. And I said, okay, just use these 3 streets to get your ARV and see what you get. And but they tend to want to push it, and the wholesalers, the inexperienced wholesalers, tend to really want to push value and use just the best comps and not the accurate comps.
Yeah. So what about kind of south of there? Like, what do you guys see from like the Christian Park area? You know, a lot of experience over there, whether it's rentals or, you know, some flips and stuff like that. It seems like when I have a Christian Park property come up, I have all kinds of people that are looking at it and stuff like that. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? I've never been like a huge fan of that area, but I sell there. So I'm like, I'll continue looking at it, but any certain thoughts from you guys on that one?
I think that area is really overlooked. I really like the neighborhood because you have a nice park there. You have nice streets there. All in all, the houses are very clean and the streets are very clean. So I think values haven't caught up there. You know, and I think if you can buy and hold something around 50 there, 60, you know, you will see values sooner rather than later at 120, 130 for a nicely redone house. It's just, it's actually nice over there. I mean, it's all of the streets are nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with Dave on that. I've been, it was one of my first properties I purchased was on Fletcher. And, you know, if you go south of English, that's the rental area. If you go north of English, then that's your more homeowner type area. It's a beautiful location. I love it. I've always loved it ever since I bought that property, and it was a great cash flowing property for me. And Dave's right. If you can get in at the 50 mark, and 60 mark, you're going to be all right. And I think with the new, criminal building and courthouse and all that they're building over there, I think is going to add some great value to the Christian Park area. I believe that they're going to start seeing a little bit more momentum over there, which will hopefully bring up those values with those houses and everything. But yeah, Christian Park's a really nice.
That's the perfect example of area that you can never go wrong if you get a completed flip at 99.9. It's going to sell.
Yep.
It's going to sell.
No, that's definitely an area that I didn't realize like the values were so great. You know, I mean, one of my clients kind of put me on that area. Simple Wholesaling had a house there at 4202 Spain or something like that avenue. And I was like, dude, what is this area? I just didn't know. I was like, well, I know it's west of Irvington. You know what I mean? And so it just kind of threw me for a loop. And then he was like, well, run the comps for me and tell me what it is. And I started looking at comps over there. I was like, holy smoke. Like, these comps are, you know, you're getting anywhere from 80,000 to 120,000 in here. Like, wow, mind blowing. So I definitely agree with you guys' sentiment. Like, you know, I mean, I think that it's helped by the proximity to Irvington.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Like, what do you guys think is really driving kind of all that whole thing? Is Irvington really is what driving that kind of just east side, south of 70, kind of that area? Is it just like kind of everything starts in Irvington and then kind of just circles out from that? Or, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on it?
I think people look at, you know, Little Flower, and they're looking at Denny in Colorado, which is Little Flower, Denny, Colorado, some of those streets over there. And you flip over to Christian Park and you drive those streets at the same value and thinking, wow, I'd like to live here. You go by in the evening and you see people walking the streets, you know, playing at the park, your little league's right there, your school's right there. I mean, it has everything going for it that some of these much higher priced neighborhoods have going there. Got the local Dairy Queen there. I mean, it's really a cool little neighborhood.
Yeah, the corner of 10th and Sherman has changed over the years. It's gotten better. There's some Mexican restaurants over there now, and some new storefronts and things like that. It's definitely improved throughout the years.
So let's talk about Irvington then, and just kind of what you guys see from there. Excuse me. I know, you know, there's.
I'll just take over the show from here.
Yeah, Dave's got a lot of us. So.
No, go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
No, let's start with that. I know, obviously, when you are in Irvington, especially in certain areas, things like that, like going back to what we talked about in some of the central areas too, of like understanding like what the historical aspect and like what the parameters are that they have on that and things. So. And you can do a little bit of everything in Irvington. You just got to be careful and know the parameters of what's going on. So Dave, let's turn it over to you and kind of hear some of your experience and some things that people need to look out for when they are investing in Irvington.
Dave, before you start, just what you kind of did with me last episode with Riverside. What are the streets of Irvington? Like, can we know what those are?
Well, when I address Irvington, there's other areas of Irvington, but when I address Irvington, I'm looking at what's under the control of the Irvington Historical Society. And it's now, I mean, we now call it the Irvington Hysterical Society because they make it so difficult to do business there. And, but it's an area, take Washington Street as the middle of it, and you go as far north as 10th is, you know, some of that's still in their jurisdiction. And you go as far south as Brookville Road. Yep. is probably the parameter. And as it cuts off, goes over to Emerson. That tends to be in Arlington. It seems to be the, you know, the area that they tend to pay a lot of attention to. So, you know, we would caution flippers to go in there, not to go in there unless one of 2 or 3 criteria are met. That you're happy with the siding that's on the house. They'll not make you change it, but if you decide to change it, then they're going to have a say in it. And that your windows are complete and you don't have to deal with the windows. If you have wood windows in the house, they'll make you keep those windows and recondition them, which is more money than putting nice new windows in the house. If you want to change the siding, you're going to have to go back to a cedar siding, which is 30-40% more. The windows, the last house that we did in Irvington, you know, I'm not exaggerating, we had $37,000 in increased construction costs because of what Irvington made us do to the house. And it basically took the profit out of the house. We did sell that house. It's pending now at $30,000 more than I thought it would sell for, but we spent almost $50,000 over budget on the house because of what Irvington made us do. They wouldn't accept our $400 wood windows. We had to use $900 wood windows. They wouldn't accept our hardy plank siding there, so we had to put cedar there. They wouldn't accept our brick. We changed. We had gray mortar on our brick. They made our beige mortar. I'm sorry. They made us change it to gray. They pulled up a 1910 garage and made us the garage look similar to what was there. So instead of $15,000 for a garage, we had close to $32,000 in our garage. And and they'll, we tried to do everything by the book. We still had 4 stop work orders on the house because they didn't like our mortar. They made us put windows on the outside of the house that we were covering up for bathrooms, but we still had to put a fake window there. So it was, and they couldn't even see it from the street. Our deck couldn't show from the street or they wouldn't let us do it because there wasn't a deck on the original house. So I can go on and on and on. This is not, on Irvington. So I would just tell I love Irvington. I was raised there, but I would say, I would say don't do Irvington unless your windows are intact and your siding is intact. And the rest of the stuff, they pretty much don't care what you do on the inside of the house. They don't dictate color, but they strongly recommend the color that you put on the house. Color of roof, and well, why'd you use that color of roof? Well, it's going to go really good with my gray, but you had a black roof on there before. And I said, well, it just doesn't work. And that black roof was 47 years old. So, I'm skeptical, and it's a shame because if Irvington would look at what we do to houses versus what they have currently on the house, Irvington would turn a lot quicker on what I call the peripheral streets. Yeah. Okay, so, I'm done ranting for a while.
Yeah. Steve, what are you seeing, like, kind of, you take that Irvington area and kind of go in between Irvington and kind of where 70 lies, kind of that little section in there, people like to call like Community Heights or Warren Park, like those kind of areas right there. Do you think those can bring like great, value for someone that is looking to either burr or just buy and hold right there?
I use caution up there. I literally just was talking to somebody about that area. Matter of fact, 2 people hit me up, 21st and Emerson. You have to use caution. You have to be very careful of what you're doing in that section over there. It's a lot different than Irvington when you go south. It's not the same area. Can you get some good cash flow out of the areas? Yeah. Is it a good flip area? No, it's not. It's a buy and hold area strictly. Yeah. I don't think it's ever really going to change. I think it's going to remain the same. But it's once again street by street. But you just have to use caution.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Caution. I try to caution everybody all the time, even if it's us. Like, we try not to like put things out there like, hey, the great burr, like that's up to you to decide. Like, that's not like we can give you advice and things like that, but don't trust everybody what they're putting out their properties of like, hey, this is great for this, great for that. So make sure, that's why we're doing episodes like this to talk about kind of what, just bring attention to like, hey, make sure you're doing your own due diligence and checking out certain things, but not every little pocket or every block is what people say it is. So just be careful of some stuff like that. So fellas, as we kind of wrap up this episode, let's kind of jump up above 70 there on this east side. And let's kind of talk about a little bit from, kind of you have the Brightwood, Washington Park areas over to, 465. That's kind of a big area right there. But let's just kind of talk about that pocket of like Washington Park, Brightwood. And of course, everybody always says, hey, never invest in 46218. That's the common thing I'm always hearing everybody. I have a ton of investors that are being successful in 46218. Are they people that live in California that can't walk up and down the streets or check in on their properties? No, it's usually not. It's usually the local people that are having a lot of success of investing there because you can pick up cheap properties and rent as long as you can keep an eye on them. So Sterling, what do you think about that?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, man. I think, I think I see people dumping a lot on 46218. I own, 8 properties in 46218, and I bought it right. I knew what the neighborhood was, and honestly, I probably haven't had a turnover in 4 years.
That's the key,
So
though, Sterling. That's the key. You knew what it was,
yeah,
right? So you knew what you're walking into, to where I think a lot of out-of-state people, they don't. And they get lured in by these turnkey companies that make
absolutely.
this certain stuff. Oh, this is a great blah, 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 up and coming, yada, yada. To be successful, you have to know what you're walking into.
No, you're absolutely right. I saw somebody told somebody that it was like close to downtown. Oh, it was something nonsense like
Yeah.
up and close to downtown. It's like, nah, man, that's not. I have one on like, but I understand the dynamic of who the market is. I bought them for 25,000-30,000, and I rent them from 600, anywhere from $600 to $700 per month. And it was before I was a good property manager, so the conversation I had with these people was probably a lot different than what my staff has with tenants. Like, it's like, this is your house, you F it up, I'm coming after you. So we don't recommend that approach anymore, but I think
yeah, I think you're right on the numbers right there, though. If you can buy it for right around, I gotta say, you can buy it for right around that, a little bit below, a little bit over that $30,000 mark, and then rent it for right around $600, $650. If you are a buy and hold investor, and that's kind of just what you're looking to do, like, you can do that all day long there and not have. I mean, you're gonna have to deal with there's gonna be, make sure you put the right tenant in there and stuff like that. You're gonna deal with some crime and things like that, but that's that neighborhood, that's that property. So let's go a little bit.
One of the things I want to touch on before I hit on these areas, I think one of the best potential East Side flip areas now is around Emerson and 16th Street east over to Ritter. There's a bunch of 2-bedroom, 1-bath. The escalation of prices has been amazing over there.
Emerson Heights, Dave?
No, not Emerson Heights. It's the area just north of 16th Street.
Oh,
So
north.
19th place, 20th, 18th.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Over there between Emerson and Ritter. And it's an overlooked area, and community spending $65 million on their hospital over there.
Yep. And
it's in walking distance, and it's a fairly clean little neighborhood. So the point of entry over there can be 30, 35, 40,000, and ARVs are now 85,000 plus. And I think they're just going to go up because of the nurses and residents and people that will come into that neighborhood to have property. So, but going back to your 46218, obviously that's not a flip area that we would consider at all now, and it's just rental, and I'm thinking only Sterling can handle that area as far as, but he knows what he's getting into, and every deal's a good deal managed properly. When I owned we used to own 101 single family homes, and I would tell people that real estate's just the vehicle, and it's the management's the key that runs the ship.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, we have investors. This is a true story that what I'm dealing with right now. We have a house on 35th and Browse that we're trying to sell. One of the investors, we helped buy the house, rehabbed it. Just couldn't really deal with their risk tolerance. They realized early on that it was just not for them. So we literally just got an accepted offer yesterday, and I walked the house yesterday, and somebody stole the water heater and furnace.
Jeez.
And I'm like, oh man, it's like, now do you sell it? You know what I mean? Like, you just kind of, the 4,000 that it takes to put it back in there, so that's what I'm dealing with when I hang up, is like trying to figure out, like, are we going to sell this thing still, eat the $4,000 cost, or what, right? But across the street, we just bought a house for $35,000, rented for $750, and the investor realized that margin was so great, so now he's trying to sell just to kind of, on a note type basis, make some money off of it. So, it's so many different plays there that, in one instance we're winning with 15 to 20 rentals in that area. And in the other, we're trying to sell, and we got robbed. So.
That's what I think. It's a lot of people, kind of coming in, especially in this area. A lot of people kind of focus on like, oh man, that's a D neighborhood or a C minus neighborhood. And they like, don't get hung up on what the neighborhood actually is. Yes, pay attention to that, but it all depends on kind of, where you are, who your team is, and what you're doing with that property, and just keeping track of all that stuff and things. So I know a ton of people that are successful with a bunch of they have hundreds of D neighborhood properties because that's their game. So as you're careful with that kind of stuff, you'll be okay. Fellas, we kind of wrap up this episode here, kind of on the east side. I'm going to throw out a couple of neighborhoods to you guys if you guys want to maybe kind of give your last thoughts or last words of wisdom or have any advice on some of these things. But you have some neighborhoods that we haven't talked about yet, like Devington, Forest Manor, Brendanwood, the Meadows, Arlington Woods. Do any of those stick out to you guys as like neighborhoods that like, yeah, check out this, or don't hesitate here, look at this, or be careful here? Like I love the Devington area. I'll do deals there all day long. So
if it's got Devon in front of it, you can probably do pretty well on flipping properties over there. Yeah. Because there is buyers at the entry level for what you can bring to the marketplace at a pretty aggressive price.
Yeah. No, I agree with what you guys said. I think the Arlington Woods area and things like that is just, I guess I can touch on, it's just it is a rougher and poorer area, so you have to be able to go there with resources, not only just for the housing market, but you got to be able to come with like a property manager that understands that segment, getting somebody like a Harvey, because that is mostly Section 8. That is mostly, that's even different than what we were talking about when it comes to Martindale Brightwood. Martindale Brightwood looks, and I say this as a joke, but it looks like, rich compared to like the Arlington Woods area, to a certain degree. So you kind of just have to understand it and have a team that really understands that neighborhood and can help you with community resources to be successful.
Yeah, I had an example where we sold a guy a turnkey property on the south side of town, and I told him, I said, talk to this property manager. I said, it was somebody else, and he gets he decides he's going to do business with the Broad Ripple property manager. Mm-hmm. And I said, and my investor calls me and he says, okay, he's telling me I can only rent this for $550. And I said, who are you talking to? And I said, did you talk to Sterling? Did you talk to this guy? He said, no. They said, call those guys. So he calls the other one, and he called me back and he says, yeah, the guy rented day one at $850. What you told me. And I said, well, the Broad Ripple guy just knows Broad Ripple. I mean, he gets $850 for one bedroom, half a bath, so he's thinking that house is not going to do it, and he got a solid tenant for $850 a month. So pick your property manager careful that understands those neighborhoods.
So Steve, any last thoughts from you on just kind of the east side here of any of the neighborhoods that stick out to you or anything, or any last tips?
Yeah, Arlington, 42nd up in that area, that whole section's over there. I like them as solid rentals.
We lose you, Steve?
I think we might have lost Steve. He was just giving some awesome words of wisdom here and stuff like that.
You can do some flips. Did I?
Sorry, Steve, we kind of lost you for a little bit. If you want to sorry about that. You want to repeat yourself here real quick, and then we'll.
Yeah, not a problem.
That was excellent, Steve.
The wonders of Zoom meeting and podcasting through Zoom and stuff like that.
Do you got me now?
Yeah, we got you're kind of breaking up and stuff here, but no. So we'll kind of leave it as a cliffhanger. So we'll get back to that maybe next episode. We got to recap to be continued on Steve's thoughts. So,
Risk.
Yeah. So no, appreciate you guys jumping on here with me today, and don't hesitate to reach out with us. You can reach out to any of us on Facebook or anything like that. Hit us up if you have any questions or any insights on anything that we missed or anything you have questions about on something we need to cover in future episodes or anything like that. So this is a wrap for kind of the east side of Indianapolis, and we'll be back in the next episode. We're going to be talking about the west side. So you guys take care, and thanks for tuning in for another Indie Investor Pod.
Enjoyed it.